You know how much I respect you, but let's be honest here.
I don't need to be corrected, and I don't need to be told I'm dishonest, Karen. But by all means, go ahead.
I didn't say it. I said let's be honest with the American people here.
I am.
So, well,
you ought to try
CR that I'm doing it right now, brother.
Arrogant MAGA advocate Scott Jennings joined Kaitlan Collins' show to debate the current government shutdown, which the Republicans have the power to stop whenever they choose. Yet commentators like Scott Jennings and politicians like MAGA Mike Johnson persistently point fingers at the Democrats. We'll watch clips from CNN featuring Scott Jennings debating Karen Finney on Kaitlan Collins' program. I'll be sharing my opinions on this too. Let's dive into it together.
White House is arguing today.
Well, the president did try to bring them into the room the other day, and they wouldn't budge. I mean, look, the facts here are pretty simple. The Republican Party has put on the floor and voted for a clean, continuing resolution, no changes. These are Biden budget numbers, by the way, and numbers that Democrats have voted for 13 times. Nothing up our sleeves here, Kaitlan. They're trying to keep the government open long enough to negotiate things like the health care issue, which you were just debating, which I actually think maybe Republicans will wind up dealing on that. But they're not going to do it under duress, and they're not going to do it under threat of rolling back all the Medicaid reforms that were done this summer. So I think President Trump tried to bring the Democrats in. And at the end of the day, I think the American people know here they're looking at two parties. One's trying to do a bunch of funny business. One's trying to keep the doors open. And right now, I don't think the funny business side is winning in the eyes of the American people.
Karen, what's your view on that?
Well, I just want to correct something. You know, Scott, you know how much I respect you, but let's be honest here.
I don't need to be corrected, and I don't need to be told I'm dishonest, Karen. But by all means, go ahead.
I didn't say it. I said let's be honest with the American people here.
I am.
So, well,
you ought to try
CR that I'm doing it right now, brother. So the CR is that the Republicans have proposed is actually not clean. It's pretty dirty because it includes the $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts that the American people themselves have made clear they do not like. So it is not the same. I think it'd be a very different moment and conversation if literally we were talking about what was passed in 2024. That is not the actual fact of the case. The fact of the case is that the measure is something that, again, the American people themselves have said they do not like. The other piece of this is, I think Democrats have a clear, concise message in terms of health care. Think about this. Republicans are on the side of saying we have to protect these tax cuts for billionaires. That's going to impact the wealthiest 1%. Democrats are saying we want to protect health care for over 20 million American families. And I agree with what, I was glad Senator Smith pointed out. I also just got my email today about my health care and choosing a plan. So people are already seeing that their costs are going to go up starting in January 2026. So I think Democrats feel pretty strong about this because the politics have changed. And, the last thing I would just say on this, my first government shutdown, Scott, I know you've been through a few of them too, was in the Clinton administration. And the kind of backslapping, oh, we're just joking that we heard from the vice president today. Well, we heard that from Newt Gingrich, and he was, bracing for the fight. And we all know how that worked out. I don't think the American people like seeing the president make light of their health care or their jobs.
Scott, you want to respond?
Yeah, sure. Look, we're stunned. I'll just be honest with you. We're stunned. The Democratic constituencies are principally immigration populations and government workers. And right now,
I'm a Democrat, and I'm not an immigrant, and I'm not a government worker.
You're putting one on top of
yourself.
You're putting one on top of the other.
My mother is a Democrat. She's not an immigrant. She's not a government worker.
This is what your party relies on, and you've closed shop on government in Washington, D.C., and eventually they're going to get tired of it. There is no reason this government cannot be left open.
Americans who voted for.
I find it absolutely comical that Scott Jennings, who reeks of arrogance, gets so ruffled when asked to be truthful, especially considering he's one of the least genuine personalities on television. He frequently appears on shows like Kaitlan Collins's on CNN and Abby Phillips's. All he does is spin stories, constantly spreading misinformation and disinformation. He's a self-satisfied, deceitful mouthpiece. It's laughable that he talks about the president wanting unity, all while Trump continuously advises Republicans against dealing with Democrats. Jennings is well aware that this narrative isn't true, Yet he acts so offended when confronted about honesty, despite being one of the most deceitful commentators out there. His smug expression and attitude really rub me the wrong way.
For Kamala Harris, we're all immigrants?
No, I'm
that's
saying
not true.
I'm saying I'm listening to Democratic arguments about most policy issues, and I'm looking at Democratic energy, and it mostly has to do with things to do with immigrants, illegal and some legal, and things to do with government bureaucrats. And right now, you're putting one of your constituencies out of business.
Can I say one thing, which is that people who are in the country...
The Trump administration and supporters of MAGA, such as Scott Jennings, are attempting to sideline another group, federal employees. And you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a career as a federal worker.
Legally cannot get these subsidies
Sure
that we're
they can.
talking about.
Sure they can.
No, they can't.
No,
Sure
they
they
can't.
can.
It's
When they-
federal law, Scott,
who
as
do you
know,
think?
but
Who do
Scott,
you think pays when they go to the emergency room? It's the Medicaid
Scott,
emergency
going
program.
to the emergency room is not getting an Obamacare subsidy. The
You
emergency
guys are
room is not
conflating.
healthcare,
You guys are
Scott.
conflating
No, we're
these
not,
issues.
Scott.
You're conflating these
and
issues.
you're being dishonest with
The
the American
subsidies are a
people about
separate
this,
issue. The
because you know
Medicaid
it's
program cuts
unpopular.
are a different thing.
Right, but I'm talking
Medicaid
about subsidies.
and the Obamacare stuff are two different issues. And I said
Correct.
the subsidies may get negotiated over time, but what Democrats want to do is roll back what the Republican Medicaid reforms were. They want, look, I don't understand why everybody's so mad. For time immemorial, Democrats have argued that it's good. It's good for illegal immigrants to get Medicaid. Every candidate for president in 2020 raised their hand for it. In the big, beautiful bill debate, they argued it was good policy. I can't believe there's an about
but
face of the
Scott,
Democratic Party on it today.
Hold on. I got a question for Karen, but Scott, I will say,
Sure.
people who are in the country illegally also can't get Medicaid.
Sure
That's
they can.
federal law.
Sure they can.
They can't get Medicaid.
They also
Medicare,
can't register
CHIP,
to vote. They also
Obamacare
can't register to
subsidies.
vote, but we just found one in Maryland who was running the Des Moines
one.
school system.
Oh my God, one.
I mean,
Scott.
I'm telling you, you guys say these things can't happen,
I'm
and
just
then they
saying,
happen.
Scott, but I'm
Oh
just
my
saying it's
God, you're
federal law.
absurd.
And
You
they're
can
not
run
trying to
cover.
roll
You
back-
can run cover
they're not
for
trying
it if
to
you
roll
want,
back
but they
federal law.
do
No,
get federal
it's
tax
just the
money.
facts.
They get
But Karen,
federal
can I ask
tax
you-
money. Ask Jake.
Yeah.
He had it on today.
I'm just saying it's against federal law to
Okay.
do
Yes,
that.
it is.
Good luck with
Karen,
it.
can I ask you, because one thing that we've heard from Democrats over the last several months is that the president's consolidation of power is dangerous. That's how Democrats have framed this. But now what House Speaker Mike Johnson, the point he was making here last night, is that Democrats have handed the president more power by shutting the government down, because now they're canceling and stopping these contracts and saying they're going to fire a bunch of federal workers during this period. Was that a mistake in your view?
Well, but again, the president, it's a choice that the president can make. I mean, governing is all about choices, right? The leader of the country can say, hey, I'm going to protect tax cuts for billionaires, or I'm going to make sure over 20 million American families can get the subsidies they need to afford their health care and not see it double. And by the way, Russell Vought is not someone who, this government is, we know they're going to doge their way through the rest of the federal government anyway. I don't think there's much credibility in saying, hey, we're going to use this to lay people off. I mean, I just want to consider, it's a different pot of money, but think about the optics. The White House confirmed to Fox News today that the construction of the Grand Ballroom will continue while they are talking about laying people off and potentially firing people. That is outrageous. If you're serious about negotiating, as the senator said, you don't do things like that. You say, we are going to bring everybody to the table. Let's see what we can get done. And Scott, part of the reason this issue around the ACA credits, as the senator, I think, pointed out, there's not a lot of credibility here. So let's act like adults. Let's come to the table and stop making threats about, oh, we're going to fire these people and we're going to, you know what? You're the leader. It's your job to bring people together.
Scott Jennings embodies the quintessential MAGA representative. Smug, always with that smirk. Watch him in any video, and you'll see those eyebrows go up. I can't help but wonder if he has a buddy he's signaling to, maybe saying, guess what? Tonight, I'll give you the 3 eyebrow lifts for fun. All the time, he keeps his eyes locked on the camera, a regular move on Abby Phillips's show. His head might be turned away, but he always makes sure to turn back and glare directly into the lens, just to flaunt his smug expressions. The MAGA crowd continues spreading the false narrative of undocumented immigrants receiving Medicaid, a claim Jennings supports, even though they know it's false. They latch onto this narrative because they think it works for them. In reality, it's a relic from the Reagan era, intended for cases where an undocumented person shows up in the emergency room. The hospital is compensated by Medicaid when the patient can't pay, not the other way around. Scott Jennings and the rest of the MAGA crew are misleading when they assert that undocumented individuals receive Medicaid, similar to their false claims about undocumented people voting. Jennings cited a single incident, and Karen Finney aptly pointed out, "One incident, Scott." Another favorite MAGA myth is voter fraud. Studies have reviewed billions of ballots, discovering fraud in less than a fraction of 1%, typically due to genuine mistakes like someone unknowingly voting in two places. Actual fraud cases usually involve Republicans. Whenever Republicans or MAGA initiate such investigations, they consistently drop them because they end up looking unfavorable. Meanwhile, Scott Jennings is akin to a disinformation operative. He and others like Caroline Leavitt would have thrived in 1940s Germany with their misinformation tricks, broadcasting on shows like CNN with Kaitlan Collins. Share your thoughts on all this. Do you side with Karen Finney or agree with Scott Jennings' smug propaganda? Drop your opinions in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I'll catch you next time.